what I learned was how wonderfully designed the human body is. And we have a natural design for strength and power and grace and fluidity and all the beautiful qualities of expression. The human body is amazing, and we're all designed to have that expression. But what I learned is I myself and most other people just don't live in our design. We live in a modern world that takes away the necessity for us to live in our design away. Whether it's yoga, whether it's weight training, whether it's ballet, whatever the activity is, if we live in our design and we breathe the way we were designed to breathe, the way we came into the world breathing, if we activate our vestibular system often throughout the day, and if we engage in our gait pattern, we will move like other animals will stop and watch us because we're the ones moving so gracefully. Once you don't feel good at all, and then you just start to feel bad and you recognize that you feel bad, then you look for answers. And so then you go to the authority figures, being the ones who the doctors, the ones, the pharmaceutical companies, right? Like they know what's best for you. They know how to help you. And so I think people then look for their hope in not in their own bodies and their own design and their own strength, but they look for an outside source. And that's again, I think it still goes along those lines. Forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know that they have the power in their body to right the ship, to correct, to make the course correction. So physically, if you're uncomfortable and you hurt, your world shrinks, but then so does your attitude, so does your mindset, so do your emotions. Your emotions go south below the line. You can develop anger, frustration, fear, depression, and then apathy. Like you can just be totally like disconnected. Um, but the thing is, and this can be hard for some people to swallow, especially if they are in pain. Pain can go away. We are not designed to be in pain. Pain is a signal to help us make a change. So everything matters. How we approach this world matters. How we approach our body matters because it's not just about our body. It's about our whole being. And it's not just about our whole being, it's about our whole interaction with those around us, which is truly our whole being because everybody affects everybody, just as everything in your body affects everything else in your body. There is nothing in this world that is separated from anything else.
So I'm Sifu Slim, folks. Welcome aboard. And I could say welcome aboard because I'm in a seafaring home right now. Really cool stuff. If you could see behind me, there's a buoy up top there, if you can see that. And seafaring picture, the ship's light right here, the ocean scene up top. So a very seafaring place. I am in Stuart, Florida, which I encourage everyone to put on their list of places to go. Old school Florida. It's on the Treasure Coast, so you can imagine what back in time in the early 1900s, 1800s, and before, what was happening in this area, the Treasure Coast. Grabbing things from islands and from native peoples, and then absconding with those things back to ports of Caucasian people. That's the history of that part of the Treasure Coast. So English, French, Dutch, Germans, and American colonists, the Treasure Coast, grabbing gold, grabbing artifacts, etc., at the Treasure Coast. So Sifu Slim at sifuslim.com. Please, folks, take a moment, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, and if you consider subscribing, and if you have any questions along the way of this discussion, the journey of this interview, please put them in the comments down below, and we will try to answer those. Just ask you to be respectful in your comments. So there we are. So I'm here with Tim Anderson today. We've already had one conversation. This is our second conversation, and I get to find out what makes Tim tick, what helps him in his coaching and his own personal journey. So Tim, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Sifu, thanks for having me. My name is Tim. I'm from a small town called Fuquay-Varina. It's really hard for people to say. It's right south of Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been in the fitness industry since I was about 13, I guess. But officially since 1998. I have a private training studio in Fuquay Varina, and I own a company called Original Strength where I get to teach people how they were designed to move all over the world.
Well, that's wonderful. And I know your website, or at least one of them, is originalstrength.net.
Yes, that is the educational company. My private studio training studio is originalstrengthinstitute.com.
Oh, you institute professor, you. I can't wait to come and attend one of your courses there.
We'd love to have you. That's where we do all of our education and training, or it's ground zero. Every now and then we branch out to somewhere else.
Good. Well, are you doing any webinars these days?
We were doing them heavy when COVID started, but since in the last year and a half to 2 years, we've kind of slowed those down because to me, the in-person learning is so much grander than the two-dimensional learning. It's not that it's not great, and it certainly served its purpose at the time, but there's just nothing like being with people and being able to share that experience.
Yeah, I'm with you. The in-person, I call it the human dynamic or the human dynamic energy. And there's nothing like it. I think webinars are great. It's good to bond with people, either like-minded or not so like-minded people that you're learning things from and who are challenging some of parts of your philosophy and your practices. But in person, when you finally make that drive, that train trip, that flight, and you gather together, you walk, whatever it is, and you gather, and then you have that human dynamic energy, and it's powerful. It's like, do you want to pet a virtual dog, or you want to pet your real dog?
Real dog, for sure.
So, Tim, you are in your 30s currently?
I will be 50 in about 6 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
You dark-haired, non-gray Native American, probably origin guy. Is that how you're doing the non-gray hair?
I just think it's something in the water in Fuquay. The town was actually founded on the Fountain of Youth. Like that's how it got started. So
Wow.
I'm running with it.
Well, geez, if I have another life and I want to maintain my brown hair a few decades longer, I may take up residence in Fuqua.
All roads lead to Fuquay, my man.
Fuquay. Fuquay.
Fuquay.
Is that French?
It is
Yeah,
a French family started the town.
fascinating. There's so much to know about towns and histories. And I had an hour and 15-minute conversation on the beach and then in the deck area walking off the beach up the steps with a gentleman yesterday, and I'm kind of an information guy and a historical guy, a reader guy, a polymath on a lower one-third polymath, I call myself, because I remember things and I study things. And this gentleman, my gosh, the amount of information and the amount of information recall he had, it was a pleasure to speak with him. And I hope he took away that I'm informed and I'm a good listener. And that's what I hope he took away from that.
I'm sure he did. Like if you enjoyed the conversation, he probably enjoyed the conversation.
We didn't want to say goodbye. It just kept going. And every time we were ready to say goodbye, another vein of conversation wisdom crept in. And so there we were, on and on and on. But original strength. So I'm going to tell you what I think about original strength, and then you can tell me what you're doing with your part of your motto and your goal setting on original strength. I started out lifting at the age of 10.
Wow.
Besides things like maybe some things in PE where we had to move objects and that type of thing, and then helping around the house and lifting concrete blocks. But I was a really thin, slim kid, still a slim dude, and age 62. But when I started doing weight training, I had a book. So I got the weight set. My dad bought this weight set, and it came with a book, or maybe he bought a book separately. And I really liked the book. And it was good information for 1972 when he bought this stuff. I remember how hard it was to get the weights out of the car. So we had to take them separately because it's 110 pounds of weight. And I'm probably a 90 something pound kid at the time. So I had to take that little by little, maybe 80 pounds. I don't even know. I was little. So we took that in the house, and I'm reading the book, and it talked about increasing weight over time, et cetera, et cetera. So I was able to do that because one, I'm training, and two, I'm growing. I'm eating dinner, I'm sleeping, I'm growing. Your hormones are doing its thing, your biochemistry is doing its thing, and you're growing. But then once you become full grown, you can't always increase weight. People in when I was hitting the 24-hour fitness, which used to be called 24-hour Nautilus, they were always talking about the idea of isolation, which now we know, unless you're a bodybuilder, may not be the right thing to go because you want to incorporate all of your biodynamic energy, your mind, body, and spirit, your balance, and the list goes on. You don't want to just do isolation, but it was a big thing in the 70s where people were following bodybuilders for fitness. Then when I learned about, full body motion and these types of things, people were still talking about increasing your weight. And then this idea of bigger, stronger, faster took over. And what I started to realize is that when I pushed my base power, my base repetitions, and I pushed that to try to be bigger, stronger, faster, I would get clunkier. So my dancing and aerobics would subside. My dancing on the dance floor, my golf, which you don't want to be too bulky and disjointed, my tennis, all these things started to suffer. And sitting at a desk, standing and running was harder because I was just pushing too hard. So that was my idea of finding this base rate that could be sustainable. And then years later, 2008, when I became Sifu Slim, and I came up with my first website called maintenanceworkout.com, I decided this idea of maintenance and then balance and then joy in movement and beauty in movement and joy in motion and the artistry of motion. All of that stuff became more important to me. And now, as an older guy, the sustainability and the function is even more important. So tell me if that journey is something you've been through, Tim, and it's something that you have a good angle to help coach people on. And then also tell us how you came up with original strength and what that's all about.
So personally, like I started weight training when I was 13 because my football coach said if I did not, I would not be on his team. So I basically learned how to lift on my own, and it stuck. That was when it started, and it never ever stopped. So, but along the way, when I was in my 30s, I had a lot of overuse injuries, and I just didn't feel as good as I thought I should. So I tried to learn about corrective exercises, and the more I learned, the more I tried to apply. I just couldn't fix myself. And the problem was I was overtraining and training too hard, but I wasn't allowing myself to recover. So the easiest fix would have just been to take a break or to throttle down a little bit, but that wasn't my mindset. I wasn't ready for that. And so, stubbornly, I would just push through. And then one night I realized that no matter how much I was learning, no matter how much I applied it, and I was a good student, like I knew the books inside and out. I went to all the classes, I talked to all the teachers, but I just couldn't fix myself. And so I started to feel fragile, and I was sitting there one night feeling kind of sorry for myself, and I didn't know what to do. So I asked God to show me how to train to be bulletproof like Superman because I was a big Superman fan. I've never grown out of that. And within about 2 weeks, I was walking around the house and I picked up a book on learning disorders, and God just kind of connected all the dots. And what I learned was how wonderfully designed the human body is. And we have a natural design for strength and power and grace and fluidity and all the beautiful qualities of expression. The human body is amazing, and we're all designed to have that expression. But what I learned is I myself and most other people just don't live in our design. We live in a modern world that takes away the necessity for us to live in our design away. So, being sedentary all the time and then like exercising, thinking that you can fix all the things that your lifestyle is unraveling is just doesn't really work. So I guess that's what I learned is original strength is the strength that we're born with and the strength that we're designed to have throughout our entire lifetime.
Yeah.
It's
I
just that
think
we don't always engage in it.
Yeah, I think you landed on the same thing I landed on that, when I meet people who played high school, college, or pro football, there's a classic example. Like I met a gentleman the other day. He's in his residency for his osteopath um, degree, and he's a tall guy. He was probably 6'6", and he wasn't huge, but he was a domino build, long arms, and he was a big guy. And I said, "How is your hang time these days? And how was it back in the day?" And he said, "You're close. I was a college football player." So he looked to me more like a basketball player. But if you're 6'6" and you are alignment, and then you drop all that extra weight that you had back in college or whenever you put all that weight on, now you could look like a basketball player, high school or college basketball player, or even a pro at 6'6". Charles Barkley, I think, was something like 6'5", 6'6", somewhere in there, and Michael Jordan maybe 6'5" or 6'6". So you could be a pro, and you could be a pro at 5'8" if you're a point guard. But I said, "What'd you get up to?" Because he looked like he was about maybe 225 to 235. I said, "What'd you get up to? 260 in college?" Guess what he said?
280.
278. So you were right in there. And I'm looking at these people and I'm thinking the amount of pressure you put on your body, and then you go sit in school and your classroom, and you're on the airplanes or buses for your trips to go to the other games and such. You're in the weight room all the time. You're eating all the time. And then you're in late night study hall, maybe even doing tutoring, getting tutoring, because it's a football compared to what I did in high school is an extra, like I did a lot of fitness and sports. So maybe I did 3 to 4 hours, 5 days a week, and then maybe on a weekend, a long hike and a long run, plus the fitness. So maybe even more on the weekend someday. These folks on my football team, because of meetings, because of therapy, I didn't have the funds to go to get massages when I was in college or personal physical therapy. And I didn't even know what chiropractic was when I was in college. These guys are doing probably an extra 3 hours of compared to what I was doing. And then they had to recover. My gosh, think of that. Think of all that type of stuff. I don't even think we had baths in our dorm rooms where you could go take an Epsom salt bath. We just had showers. Over to Tim for his thoughts on some of this.
No, so the body is designed to move well, and there's two, like, when we think of strength, we often think of, well, I've got to get into the gym, got to lift weights, and that's how I build size and muscle. And there's nothing wrong with that. But most of us are stronger than we have access to. What I mean by that is you're in your body right now, your muscles are strong enough to break your bones if they could, your own bones, if they could contract at maximum intensity. You have a brain that inhibits them from being able to do that. Um, so you can't necessarily do that if you without, without being electrocuted. But
Mhm.
but if we engage in our design, we actually get more access to our strength, and you'll find that it enhances what you can do physically. So for a football player, I mean, especially in college, yes, they have to lift heavy weights, and I mean, it's a business. It's a
Yeah,
job.
yeah,
So it's not like a regular person's life. And they're playing in a business, not just a sport. So it is live, eat, sleep, football and train and all those other things. And they do have to eat a certain amount to be able to feed their machine to recover. And they have to sleep a certain amount to perform well. And for football players' credit, or any college athlete, they're living more in their design than other people because they have to be plugged in to the movement, the practices, the court time, the field time, and the weight room time. Whereas most other people are living in the regular world where it's more sedentary. It's more sedentary, right? So I I don't know where that necessarily leads us to, other than whether you're a soccer watcher or a soccer player. No matter who you are, your body is designed to be healthy and strong and resilient throughout your entire life. You're designed to be just as strong as you want to be, and feel good and like not hurt and not ache, and have energy. You're designed to sleep well. You're designed to be joyful, to have a uplifting countenance. But none of us are designed to break down and or be sore or have anxiety or just be like just downtrodden from life.
Yeah, I came up with fallout. That's a word I didn't invent, but I put that into my book, The Aging Athlete, and also Sedentary Nation, and my third book, Raising a Child Athlete, question mark. And what I came up with, because somebody I hadn't spoken to, a college athlete I hadn't spoken to, who got into yoga. So he was already into a number of the traditional high school sports, the baseballs, the football, the running, basketball, all these types of things. And he was good at all of those. And then after being in the corporate world, working for, I think, Pepsi Cola, I think they're the one that's it's based in Atlanta. He got into yoga. He wanted to do this mind body spirit connection type of a thing. And I think a lot of people gravitate to that. And I think we should start people out at that and then have that as the default, and then add on football, add on ultimate frisbee, add on lacrosse, swimming to that, because that yoga and that also Jack LaLanne fitness, kind of this whole thing of, daily maintenance, right? If you can get on one of those early and then add on things to that. And then when you leave high school, college, or pro sports or recreational, you don't want to play softball anymore. You always have this base here. You don't just say no to softball and then you go back to sitting in your car and on your couch and standing at your job or your volunteer position, whatever. And so having that base deal for daily maintenance, and I hope people don't look at muscles and fat. I hope they look at mind, body, and spirit, and I hope they look at activity. Because when people tell me they want to lose weight, I said, well, how's your daily activity? So there's your daily activity, and start with that. And then at your store, start with what you're buying. If you do those two things right, you are going to burn calories and you're going to improve your posture, etc. Start with those two things. It's so simple, but they start doing traditionally. What I found is people overcomplicate that. And then they start charting everything and reading everything and watching videos. But the simple thing is, just like you want to do your garden, you go out there in the fall, you put some cardboard down, you put some mulch over that, some clippings, some leaves, whatever, and you let that stuff stew. You let nature do its thing under the snow. If you're in North Carolina or New Jersey, where I'm originally from, you let that nature work its magic, and all those microorganisms and all the worms and everything, they do all the work. And then come springtime, you can plant your peas. You can take the tomato from the place where you buy it. You can stick it in its hole, a little bone meal, maybe a fish tail or head with that good soil that you've got going, and you test the soil. And there's all the work being done in a balanced kind of a way without going crazy, without rebuilding everything all the time, or without rethinking things too frequently. Over to Tim for his thoughts on that.
Hi, this is Sifu Slim, author of The Aging Athlete. In this book, you're going to get to hear about two different groups of former high-performance athletes. One group, which is made up of 90% of the former athletes, does not do physical activity on a regular basis and tends to suffer the consequences of a sedentary lifestyle. The other group, which is made up of 10% of the former athletes, is doing physical activity on a regular basis and tends to thrive through the aging process, or at least has a better chance at coping with the aging process. We could have taken these folks to a lab and done all kinds of tests on them. Instead, we slowed them down and sat them down and asked them, in their own words, to describe why they're wired the way they are, so that we all former athletes and non-athletes can use some of their inspirational and motivational and mindset lessons in our own lives. I hope you pick up a copy today. You can go to theagingathlete.com. And when you have a chance to read it, I'd love to hear back from you to find out what your thoughts are on the stories of these aging athletes.
Well, Sifu, so in my world, we all have a design for movement. We're designed to perform specific movements. For example, we're born designed to breathe a certain way. We're born designed to activate our vestibular system, moving our eyes and our head often. We're born to engage in our gait pattern, which is four limbs moving together contralaterally, mirroring each other. And if we do those three things, the way we were born doing them and the way we were born with the program to be able to do them, then we can do everything else we want to do well. Whether it's yoga, whether it's weight training, whether it's ballet, whatever the activity is, if we live in our design and we breathe the way we were designed to breathe, the way we came into the world breathing, if we activate our vestibular system often throughout the day, and if we engage in our gait pattern, we will move like other animals will stop and watch us because we're the ones moving so gracefully. And that
Not
isn't
just
all
when
of
they're
us.
not just when they're hungry, correct?
Not just when they're hungry. Like, no. So, like, think about it. Like, have you ever watched a deer walking through the woods or prancing across, like, jumping over things? They look beautiful. They're so fluid and they're just beautiful. But the deer are supposed to stop and watch us move because we are the ones that are supposed to move beautifully as well. So, and again, we're all born with this ability. And we all were born with a developmental sequence that is designed to build our brains, tie our body together, and give us full access to our ability to express ourselves in mind, body, and spirit. But the problem is that most of us don't live in our design. We've been distracted and we've been sold something else. We've been sold convenience, and there's nothing wrong with our modern world. I love a lot of the things we have access to, but we have forgotten what we're designed to do, and we've taken our bodies for granted. And if we only had a clue of how wonderfully designed we are, it would encourage people to engage in their design because you know what? It feels good to feel good. And when you learn that and you understand that, that's amazing. And it's in your power, it's in your access. Like we get to choose how our nervous system is built. We get to choose how our body expresses itself. We get to choose our attitude. But it is easier to choose a good attitude when you are moving well because how you move is attached to how you feel and how you think. And how you think and how you feel is attached to how you move. They all influence one another. But we are born with a design to move, and that movement is what builds our brain, builds our nervous system, and ties our body together.
I went to a cardiologist seminar about 2010. So I was already Sifu Slim at that time, but I've been in a wellness fitness my whole life. And I'm there with my dad, maybe both parents, I can't remember. And the people coming to see the cardiologist, first of all, the cardiologist was not fit. So there you go. Start off with that. A 40-year-old gentleman who was not fit. His significant other was there with him. She was also not really fit. And when I say that, I mean you can feel vitality. You can look at somebody's hand and you can either see a puffy hand or you can see, sort of independent tendons and ligaments on the back of a hand. So then you can see that, their posture's off, a little bit of flabbiness in the forearm, their glutes don't have any definition. You can see it, right? And so I'm looking at these people and I'm saying, okay, fitness, not very good. Wonder what their health is like. If you did the blood panel, the heart scans and all these types of things, a chiropractor and physical therapist could do a posture scan. So I'm looking at people who look to me like your traditional workaholic. They work and they treat patients. And now we go to the patients who were there. These people were predominantly from their 50s through their 90s. No one looked like they were fit. No one. I saw people who were supersized. I saw people were hunched over. I saw if they weren't supersized everywhere, men had guts and women had flabiola everywhere. I didn't see even one frail person there. So I don't know if there's a correlation between old and frail and less heart problems. I would guess there is, but I couldn't attest to that. But and then there I am, thin fitness guy, vitality. My dad, thin non-fitness guy in terms of aerobic fitness and strength fitness, but he does his functional training every morning. He's been doing that for 35, 45 years, somewhere in there, to provide himself a way to avoid surgery, hip or back surgery, right? So we're the two fit people among 40 some people in this group. And I'm thinking that this is not an anomaly. I think this is the tradition of these people who are going to seek answers from their doctor as almost like a godlike thing, to give them some sort of a sustainable way to live through medication, through intervention, and maybe surgery when they refer him out to the cardiac surgeon. It's just not a good way to live. And this is going back almost 2 decades now. So I think we're in a problem of mindset and practice, and I'd love to hear your opinion on the way people are handling medicine versus Socrates and Jack LaLanne, where food and physicality are your medicine.
I there's this line in the Bible that Jesus said, like, forgive them for they don't know what they're doing. I think a lot of people, they don't mean to not be healthy. I now there's definitely ownership in because we're a collection of our habits, right? But I think some people get in this spiral or this accumulation of habits that just eventually the momentum takes over and they're on cruise control. And they don't, and before you know it, like, I mean, as you get older, you realize, like, man, when you're a kid, it takes a day forever to go by. But when you're an adult, a day lasts a second. And so I think when we become adults, that our days last seconds and we just take for granted time and we slip off into our habits. And then the next thing you know, you wake up and you look in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself, or you don't have the body that you know or thought you were supposed to have. Or you just realize, man, I haven't felt good in so long, I forgot what it's like to feel good. And so your normal standard operating procedure is that you just feel like, darn it. And I think, and then once you don't feel good at all, and then you just start to feel bad and you recognize that you feel bad, then you look for answers. And so then you go to the authority figures, being the ones who, the doctors, the pharmaceutical companies, right? Like, they know what's best for you. They know how to help you. And so I think people then look for their hope in not in their own bodies and their own design and their own strength, but they look for an outside source. And that's again, I think it still goes along those lines. Forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know that they have the power in their body to right the ship, to correct, to make the course correction. They're not helpless, but they don't have the faith or hope in themselves also to start down that journey. And they want something, when you don't feel good and you realize you're out of shape, you want to be in shape and feel good yesterday. All of a sudden, you want it now. But you got to where you got through a collection of habits and time. So in order to correct that ship is going to take creating new habits and time. And I think that's where we're willing to give our authority away to someone else and maybe look for a drug that can help us, or maybe look for whatever the doctor says is going to help us. And here's the rub, though. That stuff, it doesn't help. How many people go to the doctor and the doctor tells them what to do and they still don't do it? And how many people now, because doing things is hard. It takes creating a habit, right? So even, and some doctors will put the ownership back on the person. Hey, you need to eat better. Hey, you need to start going for walks. You need to start getting engaged in physical activity. Some doctors give the best advice, but it's still the person that has to engage in that action. But again, I think what happens is time runs away from us, habits overtake us, And then we get so far down the road, it looks like there's no turning back. And I think that's where people give away their authority.
Yeah, Tim, I'm thinking about one line in my book, Sedentary Nation, where I had to encapsulate something someone shared with me who was a bartender, former professional football player, bartender, and realtor at the time, and father of two kids. And he's heard countless conversations because when people come into a bar, if you're a listening type of a bartender, you get to hear little snippets of people's lives, what's going on, and this and that. And he said, I asked him, I was writing Sedentary Nation. I said, how come these people won't move? And he said, I'll tell you why. He said, because living another day or another year is no great shakes, Shakes, which is a early 20th century adjective or expression that means it's nothing special. It's no great shakes. And so I said, okay, I put that in the book. But then I also came up with this idea of the unconscious mind. When you study Asian medicine, you study East Indian as an Ayurveda medicine, you learn that 90 some percent of all of our processing and our decision making is really run by the unconscious mind. Yes, there's conscious mind that creeps in there, and maybe some other terms that I'd like to hear, experts talk about because they love these things. But the unconscious mind and our hormones and what's firing our biochemistry is making a lot of our decisions for us. So this idea of having comfort, and if that goes away and now you're used to discomfort, and that's your default setting, you're stressed, you're worried, you're anxious, you're feeling groggy or hyper, your stomach's in distress, that's your new norm, right? Maybe it was your norm since birth. If you grew up and you came out of a mom who was in discomfort and had poor diet and stress and all this, maybe that's your norm from birth. So once you get into that norm of dysfunction and discomfort, that's your comfort. That's your normal. You're used to being addicted to TV, work, um, uh, Coca-Cola, whatever it is. That's your default setting, and that's your comfort. They talk about comfort food. How often is comfort food healthy? When you hear people talk about it, I would say not very often. So there is comfort in the discomfort on the one hand, and living longer. Life is no great shake, so living longer is not a positive for these people. Over to Tim for his thoughts on this human problem.
And I don't even know where to start, but I I don't think anybody sets out in plans that they're not going to be in good health, or they're, sets out in plans that they're like, I think if you gave everybody the choice, they would choose health because that's the most important asset you've got. And they would choose to be happy and live a good life, right? Like, and because any parent, that's exactly what you want for your children. Like, if you really want to know what's important, have a child and know what you want. You'll know what you want for your child as they grow older, right? You want them to live a good life. So I think that everybody really wants that. I just like no great shakes. I think things get away from you, and it's 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 hard to move a stone that's not rolling. If it's, you got to overcome the inertia. You've got to and for us, for people, the inertia is our ways, our habits. And if you've been doing something for 30 years, you're really good at doing it. You're
Yes,
super
yes.
good at doing it. So that's going to be like an immovable boulder. But the thing is if if we really want to, we can move that boulder. Except it's gonna take very small steps, patience, and time.
The idea of life being no great shake. So if you've been in permanent chronic pain, if you have chronic something or multiple chronic things, right? Or depression. You hear about, I looked up George Chuvalo, he's still alive. He's a famous Canadian boxer. He was a champion in the 60s and 70s from Toronto. He had three or four of his own kids, and then he had either a first or second wife had a kid, so he had a stepchild. Three of his children, out of his own four biological kids, became addicted to heroin in their teens and early 20s. And they were good, I think, from what I gather, they were good kids. One older brother had either an accident where he was in pain, and then he started doing heroin. Then he turned his other brothers onto it. So here you're in Toronto, cold 8.5 to 9 months of the year. Your father is this famous boxer whose parents were from uh, the former Croatia, Yugoslavia area, hardworking people, lower middle class eventually because he became a professional boxer and didn't make a lot of money. So maybe middle class is where he got to. Hardworking type guy, and his kids are growing up, with a famous father. Life is tough. One gets in an accident, stress overcomes, and one brother teaches the other brothers about heroin, and they all are going through this path. And the mother actually, one kid committed suicide, one or two died of overdose, and the mother couldn't take it anymore. I'm guessing she was in her late 30s or 40s, something like that. She committed suicide. So now George Chavallo, I don't know what he was doing to keep his income going. Maybe, he was speaking. That's what happened. He started to go through depression in his 40s or 50s. And then the way he came out of it is he went around Canada and maybe other parts of the world and started speaking about this journey of his life and his children, and then his wife committing suicide. And that's how he was able to overcome some of that depression on his own. And now the poor guy in his 80s is in a facility because he's got pugilistic Parkinson's and dementia. And so he's on his way out. I wanted to interview him because as of 5 or 10 years ago, he was completely with it. And he was a fun guy to listen to about, different parts about the history of boxing and athletics. So over to Tim for his thoughts on how people and how families and groups of people can crumble.
So pain, like fire will make you move. Pain, pain makes you move, and it can destroy your life, like because it consumes you. When you hurt, you are internally focused. Your world shrinks because your abilities to live your life drastically get reduced. And then, so physically, if you're uncomfortable and you hurt, your world shrinks. But then so does your attitude, so does your mindset, so do your emotions. Your emotions go south below the line. You can develop anger, frustration, fear, depression, and then apathy. Like you can just be totally like disconnected. Um, but the thing is, and this can be hard for some people to swallow, especially if they are in pain. Pain can go away. We are not designed to be in pain. Pain is a signal to help us make a change. Now that signal can go haywire and go crosswire, and then it can start firing all the time, and we can intensify it by our focus on it. But we're not designed for that. And I have seen people engage in their movement design that have had pain for 20 years, and suddenly the pain go away. And then I saw something really interesting on their face, and it was called hope. Because if the pain can go away one day, what if it can go away another one day is 1,000 more times? And then eventually it's just gone forever. And so then life can change. And then if you can get yourself out of pain, your mood and your attitude and your emotions are going to change with that. Because there's no separation between your body, your soul, and your mind. But if we live a life of pain and we have family members or close friends around us that stay around us, we're going to give off that energy, and they're going to absorb it. So we can not just affect, but infect people with our attitudes, with our anxieties, with our fears, with our concerns, with our anger, because negativity will just spawn more negativity. Conversely, positivity will spawn more positivity. But whatever we're giving off, that's what we're giving away. So we're giving it to the receivers that are around us, whether it be our children, our spouses, our neighbors, whoever. But we're designed to feel good. And if we can give off that light, then the receivers around us will receive that light. So everything matters. How we approach this world matters. How we approach our body matters because it's not just about our body. It's about our whole being. And it's not just about our whole being, it's about our whole interaction with those around us, which is truly our whole being because everybody affects everybody, just as everything in your body affects everything else in your body. There is nothing in this world that is separated from anything else.
How do you do positivity and correlate that with, compare that to honesty and integrity, so that if someone asks you how you're doing and you're really depressed and you're in pain, what do you do? Do you say, "Oh, I'm doing fine. How are you?" Or, "I'm feeling great. What's going on with you?" Or do you say, "I'm working through some things"? Or do you tell them, because if they're a close contact of yours and you might need some help from them, you say, "I'm really going through a struggle right now. I'm going through a dark time. I've got pain. I've got a breakup going on with a significant other, or I've had a big fight with my son," whatever. How do you think that, I know each situation is different, but are there some guide rules about assessing where you are and what the diplomatic thing or the real thing, truthful thing is to say when that question comes your way?
I That was tough because I think a lot of us are reactive and not uh, responsive. I think we all know, and when somebody asks us how we're doing, we can either think they really don't care, they're just trying to be polite, or they expect a reflexive response, I'm doing good, how are you? So I think a lot of times we'll respond in the anticipation of what we assume the other person wants to hear. I guess to get to your question is we would have to approach life through vulnerability, to be able to be honest enough to say, you know what, today's just not a good day for me, but I'll be okay. How are you doing? I mean, and I think
That's a
that's
nice,
kind of,
concise way of doing it.
yeah, like you can be honest and then you can also turn that around and be compassionate and really ask the other person how they're doing instead of just being a reflexive, reactive response
Yeah.
to say, I'm good. And you, like, because you don't mean it either most of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's not seeing the person, it's just engaging in the game. And I think we're too good at that. And I think most of us don't spend enough time being honest with ourselves or loving ourselves enough to be honest and to really show the world who we are versus who we think the world wants to see.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Instead of embracing your chronic condition that you've had for weeks, months, years, what have you, you could say, today's not a great day for me. How are you doing? Or you could say, I'm working on some things. Today's not a great day, but I'm working on some things and hopefully tomorrow will be a better day. Something like that. So you don't embrace that chronic condition too much. You may embrace certain things about your existence, like the fact that you had to retire from your favorite sport through because of some reason, any reason, right? You might want to embrace that and have a little paddle out, as they call it in the surfing communities, where you burn some incense like Native Americans or sage, and then you do your own paddle out, either virtually or officially. You get on a board and you paddle out, maybe with a small group of friends, and you have a little ceremony out in the ocean. Salt water and the ocean can be very therapeutic, as long as somebody's not biting your feet off, which I have never had happen, and I'm 62, and none of my friends have had that happen. So there you are with a little ceremony, which I think ceremonies are good. I think birthday parties are good, anniversaries are good, checking in with people you haven't talked to in a while. I think all of those things provide connection, therapy, and they ground you, in this journey of life. Over to Tim. Let me know what you think on that.
I think you're right. Like, so to go against life is no big shakes, I disagree. I think life is a gift and it is worthy of celebration. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think we should celebrate birthdays. We should celebrate when somebody's having a good day or something that they were really hoping for happens. But then again, we should also be compassionate, empathetic, and when somebody's stumbling, we can share that too. We can come up alongside them, and it's okay to feel bad for somebody else. But it's also okay to try to hug them and pick them back up. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's what one of the things that makes the texture of life is what makes it worth living. The highs and lows. But I can tell you we're really built for way more highs than we are lows. But the thing about highs and lows is that they're often a choice. We choose whether it's a high or a low. It's the whole glass, is that glass half empty or is it half full? It tells a lot about a person. And then I've had some people tell me, no, that glass is full. There's half of it's full of water, the rest of it's full of air. And I'm like, you got it. You have vision.
Yeah, you're right. There are a lot more highs, and that could lead us over to discussion of the people who do mind altering drugs and why they do that. So the original trope that was bandied about, and when I was growing up, 60s through 80s, was that these people are criminals. These drug addicts are criminals. They're bad. They're counterculture, et cetera, et cetera. That was the common thing that I heard in Western society. Then along the way, you get to learn more about addiction and, the reason for people like this boxer in Canada, George Chuvalo, and his kids. What was the thing that set them off? Was it the fact that there was access to drugs? Was there pain that needed to be mitigated? Were they bored out of their minds? What are the reasons? And then you listen to this another Canadian person. He's a doctor, specialist in addiction. He did a lot of work with street addicts, homeless street addicts over the last 30 some years. And it might have been Toronto also. I can't remember. His name is Dr. Gavor Monte. Gavor Monte, I think is his last name. And what he came up with, and he had a lot of questions, and he said, the people who are in Vietnam who got addicted to heroin, cocaine, what have you, what percentage of these people, when they came back to the US in the 60s and early 70s, remain addicted? Well, I'm going to ask you to, Mate is his last name, Matay, Gabor, Gav or Bor, Mate. Take a guess what percentage remain addicts when they got back to the US at age 21, 23, et cetera.
I have no idea, so I'm just going to throw out a number of 21%.
5%.
Okay, lower
Okay.
still.
And guess what those 5% in, not 100%, but guess what the large majority of those people had in their past before they went away to fight Vietnam?
Drug addiction.
Abuse. Child abuse is the number one thing that they had. So
that makes sense.
They were masking pain from being in the war, and they're masking pain from their childhood. So he brought something to my eyes back in 2010 or 11 that I didn't know. And most people today in 2025 don't know that. And they don't know this idea of masking pain. And these people are trying to mask pain. Yes, they could have had, a job loss and a family breakup, et cetera. They're masking pain for that. Maybe they didn't have anything happen in their childhood and there was no abuse and they had normal childhood, or I don't know what normal childhood is. They had a positive childhood, something like that. But there's so much to know about this, and it would take you and I time and intentionality to really realize that, hey, that person who's breaking in my car or walking into my front door holding a gun and asking for money or whatever I have so they can go out and buy more drugs, there's a lot more to it than them being a sociopath and creating fear in the neighborhood. There's a lot more going on there. I don't know how to help them instantaneously. I'm going to protect myself and my stuff from them if the situation is warranted. I have insurance on my car. I'm not going to go out and fight them over them breaking into my car, probably. But if they come into my house, I probably will be a violent interaction unless I can escape safely and none of my family members are in my house. But there's just a lot. There's a lot involved in knowledge and knowing why people are doing what they're doing. Do you have time for one more? Or do you have to go now?
I have, yeah, I got a little bit of time.
Any thoughts, Tim, on that last?
I think I was thinking about your example with the guy with the kids with the heroin and then the Vietnam.
Mhm.
I think what happens is if we have a hole in us, we look for something to fill it. Now that hole could be maybe we grew up without a parent, maybe we grew up with abuse, so we didn't feel loved. Like, if there's an emptiness inside of us, we just like pain makes you move, emptiness will make you move because emptiness is painful. And I think people will seek out other ways to fill that emptiness, to feel good. Think about it. Like if you feel amazing, if I feel amazing, I've got no desire or impetus or anything. There's no thought in my head that, hey, I'm gonna go do drugs. I'm gonna go do heroin. Because if I feel amazing, why would I? That's never even a thought. That is so far away from my thought process because it's not needed. It's not even a consideration, right? But if you feel miserable and you just want it to stop and you don't know how to feel the pain, you're going to look. You're going to look for ways to fill that hole. And whether it's heroin, whether it's pornography, whether it's gambling, whatever. Humans are easily addictive, but I think we're easily addictive because we're supposed to be whole and not have gaping holes in us. So, and I think that's what drives us is the search for filling, filling, filling the holes.
I think you made a good point there, Tim. Filling these holes and people aren't whole people, and nor do most of the people I hear about and see and listen to their conversations. Are they seeking wholeness? They're seeking, like the doctors, relieve the symptoms. They're not seeking wholeness. Like I say when I start working with people in my coaching, I said, we're going to start out with this imagination that who you are in your body is you at the edge of a cliff in a safe spot, touching the rock, or if you're an agile person, you're up on that rock naked and there's a breeze blowing. So you think of the wolf howling and with the full moon behind them up on that cliff. That's who you are to begin with. You don't have to bring anything from work, family, your last few decades on this planet. You don't have to bring any of that with you right now for our first encounter. You are that naked person on the rock, right? And so we start with that, and then we start with what are the things you want to work on? What are your goals? And you go from there and you try, and what is feasible in the way we can accomplish those goals? What are some of the things you can do? So I've heard this story more than 5,000 times in my life. People go to the gym, they get all excited, new aerobics class, new body boot camp, new personal trainer. They get all excited. They go out and buy some weight gloves, a new headband, some new sneakers. They sign up for a 2-year membership, prepaid X amount. And then they've got a monthly. They get all excited. And by the third workout, the fifth workout, or the third month, it's no longer something they're that excited about. It becomes this mundane, repetitive thing. And they often, go from 5 days a week, then it goes down to 3, 2, 1, and then 0, and they're gone. Whereas in nature, the wolf's going to do the wolf's prowling, the wolf's hunting, the wolf's mating, the wolf's walking, the wolf's, all those things, breathing, all those things the wolf does. And that's the core, that's the base. And that's who you are, Sifu Slim student. And we got to keep that going, no matter how high, medium, or low you get from whether you're doing a gym workout, which I'm not doing a lot of with people. I'm doing more, my body is the gym. So the branch and the bar are part of our workout. The body and doing all the floor exercises, the walking, the running, the skipping rope, the dancing, the stretching, all this stuff is something you can't say, I didn't have time to go to the gym, because you're in your body. The gym's right with you, right? So those are some of the things I'm doing. And I know you have to run. We've got Tim at originalstrengthinstitute.com. And please check out his website and his books. He's got 10 books out there. And do you want any final parting words, Tim, before we say goodbye?
Hey, yeah. If you're listening and if you don't feel good in your own body, just know that you're designed to. Your body is amazing. And if you engage in the movements that you made when you were a child, amazing things happen, just like they did when you were a child. It builds your brain, builds your nervous system, helps you move well and feel good. So you're not stuck, I guess is the point.
Wonderful. Big aloha. Folks, give us a big thumbs up down below. Throw your questions down there in your comments. And check out Tim's website and check out my website, theagingathlete.com. And we'll be back with you in the future with more fun, engaging videos. Big aloha, Tim. You're the man. Go forward and prosper.
Sifu, thanks so much for having me. This was fun.